For the first time in decades, a coalition of emerging economies is mounting a serious challenge to the US dollar's reign as the world's dominant currency. The BRICS alliance, now representing over 40% of the global population and 35% of world GDP, is actively developing an alternative to the dollar-based financial system. But can this ambitious project actually succeed where so many others have failed? The dollar's dominance didn't happen by accident. Following World War II, the 1944 Bretton Woods Agreement established the US dollar as the world's primary reserve currency, backed by the largest gold reserves and strongest economy. Even after Nixon ended gold convertibility in 1971, the dollar maintained its supremacy through petrodollar recycling, deep capital markets, and military alliances. Today, nearly 60% of global foreign exchange reserves and 88% of international trade transactions are conducted in dollars. The BRICS alliance has evolved dramatically since its founding in 2009. Originally comprising Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, the bloc has recently expanded to include economic heavyweights like Saudi Arabia, UAE, Iran, and Egypt. Together, these nations control critical global resources. Over 40% of world oil production, 60% of global lithium reserves, and massive agricultural output. Their collective economic weight gives them unprecedented leverage to challenge dollar hegemony. The proposed BRICS currency faces enormous technical challenges. Unlike the euro, which required decades of economic convergence among European nations, BRICS countries have wildly different economic structures, inflation rates, and monetary policies. Creating a common currency would require establishing a central bank, coordinating interest rates across diverse economies, and building settlement systems to rival SWIFT. A monumental undertaking with no historical precedent at this scale. History offers sobering lessons for would-be dollar challengers. The euro, despite representing the world's second-largest economy, comprises only 20% of global reserves after 25 years of existence. The Japanese yen peaked at 9% of reserves in the 1990s before declining. Even China's yuan, despite massive economic growth, accounts for less than 3% of global reserves. These precedents suggest that displacing an incumbent reserve currency requires more than economic size. It demands deep, liquid financial markets and political stability. The economic foundations for a BRICS currency remain shaky. Member nations face significant internal challenges. Brazil's political volatility, Russia's international isolation, India's protectionist tendencies, China's property crisis, and South Africa's economic stagnation. These divergent economic cycles and policy priorities make coordinated monetary policy extremely difficult. A successful reserve currency requires not just size but predictability and institutional credibility. Geopolitical tensions are accelerating de-dollarization efforts. The weaponization of dollar access through sanctions against Russia has alarmed many nations, prompting central banks to diversify reserves. China has signed currency swap agreements with over 40 countries, while India now pays for Russian oil in rupees. However, these bilateral arrangements remain fragmented and lack the scale to challenge the dollar's network effects. Implementation obstacles are staggering. Creating a new reserve currency requires solving the Triffin dilemma, balancing domestic policy needs with global currency demands. It requires building deep bond markets, establishing creditor rights, and creating crisis management mechanisms. The European Monetary Union took 40 years from initial concept to implementation, and even then faced multiple existential crises. For investors, the implications of dollar decline would be profound. A weakening dollar would boost commodity prices, reshape global trade patterns, and force portfolio reallocation. Emerging market assets could benefit, while U.S. Treasury yields might rise as foreign demand decreases. However, the dollar's deep markets and rule of law protections provide enduring advantages that won't disappear overnight, while replacing the dollar remains a distant prospect. The BRICS currency initiative signals a fundamental shift in global economic power that investors cannot ignore. The world is gradually moving toward a multipolar currency system, with regional blocs developing alternative payment networks and reserve assets. The dollar's dominance may not end with a bang, but with a slow erosion, and smart investors are already positioning for this new reality.